Welcome to Onesies, the podcast of one season wonders and blunders. I'm Andrew.
I'm Emily.
And we are talking about Automan this season. We are on episode 7, The Biggest Game in Town, which technically I guess is a big game in town. Have you got 3 notes for it?
Do I? I have a couple things I want to talk about just in general. Lieutenant Jack. He's coming around. I'm coming around to Captain Jack.
Coming around to Captain
Lieutenant
Jack, yeah.
Damaging my molecules and no stakes.
Okay, so mine are going to be, we'll just run with looting minorities, ransomware, and wait, is this a location shoot?
Okay.
Yeah, so that'll probably cover us. Though, while last episode was stealing from the police impound like Lethal Weapon 3, this episode is crashing landing planes like Die Hard 2. So this actually plays like a mix of Die Hard 3 because they got sent on wild goose chases around town, and then actually there's a old Spider-Man show where it was the conspiring college students, and so this is conspiring game developers.
It wasn't the Japanese Spider-Man, was it?
No, it wasn't. I actually haven't seen those. Have you seen all those? Not
all of them, just like 1 or 2. It's great. But then again, I just watched Ape last night and loved it, and apparently you couldn't get through it. So.
I'm too much of a purist. Okay.
I understand. It's really good though. So I liked last week. I was excited just reading the synopsis of this episode because it reminded me of just all of those 70s and 80s disaster movies, all kind of rammed into one. And it was very poorly executed. And so I walked away being incredibly disappointed.
So, yeah, it starts with Lieutenant Jack and Roxanne because she's apparently his partner.
I thought she was a secretary.
Well, you're a sexist. What can I say? They're going to the strip club to check out a bomb threat or something?
Bomb threat, yeah. I think we see them kind of walking through and a bunch of scantily clad women, and the bomb squad is bringing out something with a bomb in it. And they're talking vaguely about, I hope there are no more threats on the city. Blah, blah, blah. And then they talk to some lady who owns the place. Sam Malone, is that her name?
Maroney.
Oh, right. Sorry. Wrong show. And she's very weird. Like there was no reason to have that woman in there. Nope, it was real weird.
Like, especially because then there's a citywide blackout.
Yeah. As they're looking out the window, there's the west side of LA goes on blackout.
The window in the back of the strip club. But yeah, and so they're like, Lieutenant Jack pulls out his Zippo and lights up the room for everybody. But yeah, we get this like long shot on the strip club owner, and it's just like, what? She has nothing to do with the rest of the show.
Nothing. And
she's gone.
It's just a reaction shot. It's very clearly like they recorded a few reaction shots and they just had her in there kind of looking not even knowingly, but like, I don't know. She seemed very comfortable with herself and very comfortable with what was going on, despite the fact that her business was shut down for the night. Like, and will continue to be shut down now that the power's out. Very weird.
So, yeah. Now, speaking of the power out and how well executed a disaster movie this is. So then we cut to the news. Well, we cut to a montage that includes the news, which also includes the minorities looting TV shops, which was
women's department stores too. There was a women's department store.
Okay.
And I did see some white people or not black people. So, because I noted that too. I was like, oh no. But then it's like all of the African-American people are in one scene and all of the white people are in another scene. They've segregated the cast, the extras. So it was very weird. Yeah.
But then we find out that power is not actually out all over the city because the LA Convention Center has full power. Now,
The Ambassador Hotel.
That's a real place?
Yeah. That's the place where Robert Kennedy was shot.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. It's interesting that because they do put the Ambassador Hotel sign up a bunch. I thought that was just where people were staying. I didn't realize it was the convention. So yes, there's a computer convention.
A video game convention.
Well, the video game convention, but the signage was just general computer stuff. Because I think I noticed a Cubase poster in the background.
Cool.
I don't know. Yeah. Nerd. Why don't you know what Cubase is?
Because I'm not a nerd.
Wow. Okay. Speaking of scheming nerds, so Felton Perry and the two bad white people, because one of them's a bad white woman, are watching the news about the blackout. This is important because Wally's not going to know there's a fucking blackout later. He's going to be like, what? I was playing video games.
Yeah.
And so we very quickly established these are the villains. Now, I did not look up the name of the guy who plays the main villain.
He looks familiar, though. Let's see. Ronald Tilson. Rick Lenz. Lenz.
He is very bad.
He was very bad.
But in a very 70s and 80s TV sort of way. Like
he was in The Bionic Woman, apparently, in The $6 Million Man.
So
anyway,
he's
and Baywatch.
Sort of important. But then we find out that Wally has already met Bart Johnson, who is played by Felton Perry. He's their black friend. Okay, well, just because they try to have him killed doesn't mean he's not their black friend. Okay. I mean, let's think about that, right? Like, God. Okay.
It was so terrible. As soon as what happened, I knew. I was like, oh no, they're going to kill him. No.
Okay. So Wally's playing a racing game, which I think is the first time we've actually seen video game footage. This seemed like one of the more expensive episodes because they film a lot of places that aren't like sets, and they had to license video games. So, or maybe they just filmed at a convention. But then cursor or there's a light flicker, but it's not the power going out. It's cursor.
It's cursor. Yeah. And he arrives in front of everybody, and Wally has to explain away that it's a holographic images that he's working on for a game or something.
Just a thing you do.
He takes 3 steps forward, and suddenly nobody can see him. And Automan appears on a screen on a video game behind.
Yep. A lot of Automan talking about his friends, the video games, and other things this episode.
At some point, he calls somebody his best friend. And I was like, oh, your best friend's not Wally? That's interesting. I wonder if Wally's mom's going to get mad at that.
Does Wally's mom know about Automan? Did Desi Arnaz Jr. lie to his mom about what show he was on? No, Mom, it's like, Hill Street Blues. What? No, I'm not it's a really good cop show. Okay, so this is where Wally finds out about the blackout, and Automan's like, they need everybody. They're going to need you.
And then he's I have this written down because I thought it was really stupid. Let's just say it has something to do with computers. I was like, you fucking idiot. Oh, God, it was so dumb. They're going to need you, Wally. Let's just say it has something to do with computers. Poor Chuck.
Okay, so then Wally goes to work. This isn't the time he goes to work from home, but he does that at one point in this episode, I remember. But he goes into work. Captain Boyd's freaking out about something, and there's a ransom message on the computer from the terrorists, and basically it's a ransomware. And so they run through all the things. Oh, wait, there is a really funny thing where Wally's like, oh, the hospitals alone could cause so many casualties. He's like, we're in a lot of trouble. And the captain goes, we're not in trouble. It's not us, you. And I'm like,
all
Wally,
of a sudden,
you're responsible for all of it.
Why couldn't your boots on the ground guys go and handle this? Why don't you have fucking Captain Boyd? Why don't you have like your real cops on the case, you fucking asshole? Oh, he made me so mad this episode.
Yeah, he was a bit of a dick. And they actually got him out of the office for the first time, I think, since like the first or second episode.
Yeah, but I think this is the scene where I start to turn around on Jack, where they're all gathering in Boyd's office and they're chit-chatting, and almost like a parody of a police show, like not quite Police Squad, but like he's just in and out of this episode so much and he's doing very little, but he goes, I'm going to go find out what's happening on the street. And he just dashes out. And I was like, I love this. I love this bird. I'm going to go find out what's happening on the street. And he just goes away. Doesn't say what he's doing.
He's on the
leaves
street.
Roxanne there.
Well,
leaves Roxanne there. His partner.
He's going to go drive around with a bunch of those young uniformed cops by himself for a few hours. Like,
it was so great. I loved that so much. I'm going to check out what's going on the street. And there's another scene where, again, he just has me coming around. And actually his acting for the part that he's given is pretty good. Like he's very believable as a cop. He's kind of like cool, calm, and collected. And the way he kind of like, he looks down and then kind of like up. I love it. I can't quite do it justice, describing it on a podcast, but I love it.
Is it the Clooney? Is it the ER Clooney?
I don't know what that is.
That's when you...
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like that. It's kind of like
But he doesn't have the soulful Clooney eyes. Okay. Anyway. But then Wally goes home to call Automan, and Automan takes a while to show up.
Which I thought was weird because
it is weird.
There's a scene later where he says, and he's established before that, I know exactly what you want. Like, I know when you need me because you've programmed it into me that I can read.
But this is all, and Automan was the one who told him there was an emergency.
Yeah.
And so they have this really weird bit where Automan complains that he has his needs and his feelings, and Wally doesn't acknowledge those. And then Wally's like, what the hell are you talking about? And Automan's like, dude, you programmed me with all this shit and I have to deal with it. Like, your bias about women. I only like blondes, but there are lots of pretty brunettes out there for me. But instead, because you like blondes, Wally, I have to like blondes.
Even though he fell in love with Delta Burke 2 episodes ago or whatever.
And he first hooked up with France Nguyen.
Yeah, and he hooked up with France Nguyen.
So wait, is he saying that that's why he didn't go all the way with Delta Burke?
Maybe.
It's fucked up.
She just needs to bleach her hair. Good
point. Okay, so then Automan gets a call from the LA flood control computer.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of weird phone calls this episode.
Yeah.
And so they go out to the
dam.
Whatever.
It doesn't say where.
No. And like the whole cast is there except Automan. And
the computer at the dam has been programmed to release the water and cause a flood.
Captain Boyd's like, everything's fine. This is stupid. And Wally's like, no, something's going to happen. And then the second Wally says that, something happens. But they have to go do the manual controls.
He calls in Automan to do that.
Yes, but Jack and the captain go to do it their manly selves. But Automan gets there first and does it.
I thought they tried and they couldn't get in. I don't know, whatever. I watched it 3 times and I still cannot. Whatever.
So good. So good. Then we go to the villains who talk about how the city's trying to cover up what happened because they didn't say anything about the dam because it was averted. And this is where we get this. It's not a MacGuffin. It's a red herring subplot about them creating a fake suspect.
Yeah.
And so...
which Jack is then sent out to investigate.
But Wally and Automan figure out is fake pretty much already again. And this is the second time they've had something where it's like, this seems like a frame up. And so...
yeah, where I think Heather McNair says something like, oh, the perfect suspect just fell into our laps. And then, pan to everybody looking at the camera. Like...
So Wally and Automan go to back to the computer convention center to talk to those people, and you got one of those Wally stuck on the wall shots.
I know, that was so
shots.
great when they're zooming through in the auto car. Oh, they've got an auto phone too now.
Yeah,
which I haven't seen before.
We have the call yet. Yes, we got to get to the convention, and then we have Roxanne calling the auto car. But Otto makes a name tag for himself. His name is Automan, OTTO, and I'm just like, really? Could there be Studley Ottos in the 80s? That's weird. Okay, that didn't work out for you. Reality. But then they get there and they get introduced to everybody, to the bad guys. And
Wally knows what's his name? Felton
Perry, but he doesn't.
But he doesn't say like how they know each other. But they seem to be like, hey, chummy.
Yeah. So that's a little weird.
That was weird. And my thing about the bad guys is we get from the show, or I got from the show, that they all had kind of worked together in computers in Los Angeles, kind of building this network for the city. But I don't understand what the motivation is for the other two, Felton Perry and the woman, to like want to murder people and destroy the city. Like, I don't understand what their motivation. The one guy got fired because he was an asshole and doesn't want to take responsibility, so he's going to destroy.
Money and bad writing.
Okay.
So
they meet Felton. They meet Felton. They meet Ellie
and Tilson. And then Wally's like, your name's familiar.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, you know me from my games. And then they leave. And Felton Perry's worried that the cops are onto them. And so that's when Ron Tilson says, Bart's not with us anymore, which is ominous. So back in the auto car, Roxanne calls the auto car, which raises numerous questions for me.
Yeah, me too.
She knows to call she's like, okay with this?
Or the phone's being redirected to the auto car? Like Wally's phone is being redirected to the auto car? Because at some point before this, he picks up a phone, but I don't think it's the auto phone. I think it's in the police station, right? Or in Wally's house. He picks up the phone and he like receives a transmission from a computer.
Yeah.
Automan does. And he bleep blop bloops it and tells Wally what it says. But now they're in the car and Automan says, this call's for you. Yeah. Oh, Wally, you better get this. This one's for you. So I don't know. But yeah, I was confused about that too. Like either Roxanne is calling that specific phone or Wally's phone is being redirected. And I just don't know. I mean, he's Automan. He can get into the computers and do things that aren't technological.
Roxanne hasn't complained about Automan in a few episodes.
No.
So
she also hasn't been like leching after him either.
No.
Didn't she do that in the first one?
Just in the first one.
Yeah.
She also hasn't been reestablished as Wally's girl yet.
Except for by Wally, like a true incel.
Do you know who my mother is? Okay, so Wally goes to work from home, and Automan. Oh, this is where they find out something's going on at the airport, and they're fucking with the flight control. And so Automan wants to go because he wants to dress up as John Wayne in The High and the Mighty. And then we get some of our original airplane footage, which was surprising to me. I mean, maybe not the exteriors, but at least for the interiors, they did, two different flight crews. But then Automan's at home watching the movies on his chest. And Wally's not watching. Wally's looking up Tilson.
Yeah.
And so Tilson, it turns out, was hired to computerize all of LA, but there were cost overruns, so he got fired.
Yes.
So he's a bad guy now.
Yeah.
So then they call Bart Johnson, who doesn't want to give Wally information. And Automan gets on the phone and says, I'm the federal psychic cop. You better not leave town.
Yeah.
Okay. And then...
Is Bart at the airport at this point? I don't know.
He's in his hotel room.
Okay. I couldn't quite tell where.
Yeah, it always seemed like somebody should be near the airport, but they're not.
All the cops don't. They end up going to the airport because they're overseeing like the flight control stuff to make sure everything is good. Because at some point, again later, Roxanne calls and says, "Oh, we're about to leave," and Wally's like, "No, you have to stay. Get Captain Boyd to stay."
So yeah, we get this big action sequence that sort of starts with Boyd wants to leave. Roxanne says, "You need to trust Wally."
Yeah.
And then Wally says something like that he's on his way with me and you know who are on our way. And then we get so Boyd's closing up the airport investigation, but the auto car can do a radar scan. So do they figure out that something's wrong before Bart tells them or after Bart tells them? Because Bart calls.
I don't think they ever find out until after they avoid the collision. They know that something's up.
No, they find out before. I just don't know if
I don't remember. It was so hard to follow.
So they're on their way to the airport. Bart calls. They talk to him in the car. He's got his sports car at a phone booth, as one does. And he's telling them that what they did was they fucked up the air stuff, the signal.
The radar signals.
The radar signal. Oh, that's what it is. Okay. So there's like a deadline and they're 4 minutes from the deadline and nothing's happened yet. So they don't think it's real. Okay. So that's what that is. Then Bart calls and tells them what's going on. They changed all the signals. At 8:00, the planes are going to crash. And so Automan turns it into the car into a plane and it takes off. And there's a comedy beat with an old couple seeing them.
Yeah.
That I was like, what's the guy going to say once he's done with this? And he's like, we're going back to Waikiki. And I was like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? Like, what? Like,
the big city's too crazy for them. They got to go back to Waikiki.
Hawaii? Yeah. Okay. So basically, with bad special effects, Automan averts one of the planes, and so it doesn't crash. So he saves the day.
And there's a scene inside the air control tower where Boyd's like, "Oh, I don't know who that plane was, but they saved hundreds of lives." And it's like, okay, so nobody's going to ask where this plane came from, why it's not registered. Like there's all of these like really practical questions that could be asked, and they just don't. Okay.
They've got. Done. It's 1983. They are covering up so much rape and murder. Like, probably just larceny, right? Like, they're busy. What I liked about that is the guy who played the flight controller looked at Boyd like he was a fucking idiot. Like the whole scene, the guy's just like looking at him like, God, this guy's a fucking idiot. Like, because Boyd at one point's like, oh, it was better when you were down on the field with your flame sticks waving blades. And the guy's looking at him like, stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. These computers are all messed up.
Okay. So, then Bart's car gets out of control at the airport. And I think we technically get the best car chase sequence on the show.
Yeah, I would say that.
But then it ends with the car crashing. That was the master plan, was to crash the car into something, and it doesn't kill Felton Perry.
Yeah, so a couple things about this scene. First of all, the driving. An explanation very quickly. He's lost control of the pedals. He can kind of steer it, and he's kind of steering it, but it's going very quickly. He avoids a semi-truck he can't stop. So he avoids the semi-truck that then stops all the cops that are chasing him.
Yes.
And the car crashes, and something, again, they have like a close-up on some piece of car equipment, starts on fire. I don't know if there's a bomb. I don't know. And before the bomb goes off, Wally and Automan save him from the car. Automan lifts this adult man out of a car. I thought that was pretty hot. Drags him to the street, sets him down. Then Wally realizes it's his friend, Bart Johnston. That's right. His name's Bart Johnston.
Yes.
And I thought that was pretty hot. Wally or Automan dragging him out of the car. But then he realizes, and then they go to the hospital.
Yes.
I loved this doctor. So the first scene where the doctor walks up and, Officer Nebeker, it sounds like she's like forgotten all of her lines. In that very first cut where she's like, oh, he's stable, but blah, blah. It sounds like, first of all, it's poorly written. Second of all, it sounds like she doesn't remember it. But then they cut to like a more closer version of her, and she's very familiar. I have her pulled up here. Her name is Lee Garlington. She's so cute. I love her so much. She's been in a million things.
Yes, she's on. Oh God, what was that sitcom she was on?
She was on Children's Hospital, which was good. Then there's just a bunch of stuff that like I've never seen. 90210, like the 2012, The Killing. Oh, she was on The Killing. Okay.
I swear she was a regular on a sitcom. She was apparently going to be the regular on Seinfeld, but got recast.
She was on Riches, The Riches. You watched that, right? With Eddie Izzard and what's her name? She was on The Young and the Restless. Boston Legal. She was on an episode.
Oh, okay. Well,
West Wing, a few episodes. Anyway, she was really great for the 5 lines that she had. She was great, except for that first scene where it looked like she didn't know her lines.
That was when she was like, "Oh shit, no, they were serious. It really fucking is Automan." Oh my God, I thought this was saying elsewhere. You fucking assholes. But the other thing I loved was, did you notice the lady in the sunglasses with no lines standing behind them for this whole scene?
No,
it's
I
awesome.
didn't. I'll rewatch.
It looks like she's supposed to be like. It would make sense if she was an undercover cop, like. Watching the room, but no, it's just some lady in sunglasses just in the background watching them for the whole scene.
That's hilarious. Weird. I'll have to catch that.
And in this scene,
so they established that Bart is not going to be a source of information for them because he's indisposed for at least 48 hours.
But they're going to pay the ransom, and Wally's like, "We can't pay ransom. Others will be encouraged."
Yeah, that'll just encourage other people to do bad stuff. My mom will be mad at me. I'll get grounded.
So he's like, "I better go get Otto." And Lieutenant Jack's like, "Who's Otto?"
Yeah. And Heather McNair, what's her name? She kind of looks at Jack and kind of walks away awkwardly. That was really funny. Unintentionally comedic, I think.
Oh yeah, because we still have the scene where okay. So all right, they go to the hotel. Yes, they go to the hotel and they're searching Bart's room.
Yeah.
And this is where they find the Energizer ray, but Wally wants to look at the new game or something. He's like, "No, Otto, that's not important." And I'm just like, it's like if Sherlock Holmes, if all Watson did was like, "Hey man, like, let's go get some donuts out of the fridge, man. Like, shut up, Sherlock. You're such a nerd."
Yeah.
That wasn't what Sherlock was like, but okay. So they
establish also that Energizer ray thing is potentially damaging to Automan's molecules. Yes. And I was like, what does that even mean? He's a hologram.
The hologram's got molecules, man.
Does it?
I mean,
how I guess it's like light
projected on a surf. Theoretically, the air molecules that the hologram is projected on are changed because of the hologram.
Okay.
I'm not a science-speaking person like Desi Arnaz Jr.
Well, that's fine. I like fake science. Like, I'm a huge Doctor Who fan, but this just made no sense, and it was never explained. Like, he never even tried to talk too quickly to explain it.
Well, no, because Wally didn't care.
That's true.
Want to talk about games.
Yeah, because later, when he does get hit with it, Wally's like, "What's happening?" And it's like, I told you, asshole, it's gonna hurt me.
Man doesn't have to listen, or Wally doesn't have to listen. So yeah, they hear Tilson and Ellie, and so Wally goes inside Automan, and then they go inside the wall,
But his little
and
his little toesies are sticking out.
yeah, his shoes are sticking out. But then we find out that Ellie thinks Bart's in the room, but Tilson's like, he's not here. And he's like, how can you be so sure? And he's like, I had to take appropriate action. Sometimes it's necessary to sacrifice a pawn.
Oh, that hurt me so much.
Then he tells his story about how he worked so hard for the city and all it did was get him fired for embezzlement.
Come on. I work really hard for the city. I would hope that they wouldn't fire me for embezzling. Come on.
He also wasn't fired. He was fired for suspected embezzlement that they couldn't prove because he didn't do it. So it's like, it's a really bad motive.
Yeah.
But
I don't have anything. I was going to talk about Ellie being weird. Again, like, I still don't understand her motivation, but she's willing to protect Tilson, even though she just heard that he tried to kill, he thinks he killed Bart, and that he is just being a fucking petty asshole. Like, if I heard somebody go like, oh, they fired me for embezzlement, I'd be like, you're a jerk. You need to take responsibility for your actions and move the fuck on. I know. Okay, too high of expectations. I know. I'm never going to find love. Never.
Not if you're programmed only to like blondes. Okay. So then we get an action sequence because they see Automan's toesies.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes out of the wall to fight them, but they pull the gun. And Wally's very cocky about it. And then they shoot him and it knocks them both out.
I felt that. And I thought that was funny. And again, this is a scene where Wally is inside Automan and he's talking. And so Chuck Wagner is having to do that kind of difficult task of like talking for both characters. And essentially, I mean, you hear Desi Arnaz's voice, but he just kind of turns his head to one side a little bit when he's talking, when he's moving his lips like Wally. He does so good at that. He's so good. How is Chuck Wagner so good? He's so good. Anyway, sorry.
It's hard being a 6'4" hunk of love. Like, you got limited
so good
things that people can use you in.
So it's resolved when Wally rolls out of Automan because they're on the ground now, and it's very easily resolved because he needs more power to energize his molecules, and he just does the Sith lightning thing towards the outlet in the wall, and then suddenly, like, instantly he's cured. But the bad guys have already left, and he goes to talk to the elevator to get it to stop and bring them back up to the floor, and they capture them. Yay! Bad guys captured. I watched this just now, and I was like, wait a minute, how did the bad guys get caught? I realized that in watching every single one of these episodes, after the action, I just completely zone out. Like, until the resolution at the end where they're all chit-chatting in Captain Boyd's office or whatever, I completely space out. So you've talked about like, oh, he just lasers this thing and this guy falls to his death. And I'm like, I totally missed that. But this time I remembered, because I was like, oh shit, how did they catch him? Well, they just get him in the elevator and take him to the police station. That was easy.
Yeah.
No action, no fun.
So no fun. We never see the bad guys again.
Never see him again.
We have Boyd coming in saying he can't get anywhere in his interrogation with Tilson. And I'm just kind of like, okay, I mean, it's 1983. You could literally have beaten that guy to death for the information. And
you're this like old school cop who's and you don't have the skills to talk to this gentleman. I'm sorry. You cannot be beating the drum of old school cop skills and then completely reject computers when you cannot get a confession out of a guy who is causing all of this fucking trouble.
Right. Like, and he's a computer nerd, right? Like, you go in, you say, it's just you, me, your balls, and this drawer. Bam. Dragnet, 1987. Good movie. Anyway.
You pull on his fucking bow tie, you break his glasses, and that's how you get a confession, right?
Right. So, but they can't do that because they're pros. They're computer game pros, and like, we can't crack anything. So then Jack comes back to the station I have false trial to bring Jack back to the station. There's got to be a typo.
So he had gone to investigate the false flag guy.
Right.
And he finds the guy's name written on a bathroom stall in
yes.
Gay bar in East LA with a phone number that goes back to the police station. It's not a gay bar, but I'm just assuming that's what he meant when he said East LA. It's either a gay bar or like a gang bar.
So it's a gay bar. I mean, it's a gay bar. Let Lieutenant Jack live. Okay, so they go back to so they figure out that they're the targets of Tilson's.
The third and final trap that he set. Yeah.
So, and then all the doors are locked. So everybody's trapped in the building. And so Boyd calls the bomb squad. And he yells at them for taking so long to get there.
Even though they come in instantaneously. What an asshole.
He's a fucking asshole. And they've got 15 minutes left, but then we have a commercial break and they're down to 12. And Wally's in the computer room calling Automan. And this is where I was like, oh, so everybody's going to fucking find out about Automan when he saves the day. Nope. He hides.
They all go hide in the basement. Wally's perfectly willing to go down there with them. But Automan's like, no, don't you want to save the day? He's like, I'm going to die because I programmed you that you cannot sniff out bombs. And
Automan's like, okay, dummy, but I can talk to every computer in this building except one. So maybe we should go check this shit out.
Yeah.
And it's actually a pretty cool plan. Like this would have been good in a Dirty Harry movie. So the first bomb, the strip club bomb, was a fake bomb, and there was a smart bomb, a computerized bomb underneath it.
Yes.
And so they find the bomb, and it's in the bomb squad evidence room, and they disarm it in just amount of time. And
so a couple things about that. Again, no stakes, even though not only is there a timer, but Automan is inexplicably counting down. No reason. He's just counting down. And it's as easy as like pulling a little chip out of the bomb and smashing it between his two fingers.
Yep.
No stakes. This is my problem with this whole episode, and frankly, probably the whole show, is that there's no stakes. If a C plot was like Lucy's on a plane flying from New York to visit her son in LA, and she happened to be on one of the planes that was going to crash, and at the very end they stopped it from crashing, and in the meantime they were stopping all these bombs from going off, that would have been different, because I would have had a little something, like, oh, I don't want Wally's mom to die. Brr. But no, there's nothing like that. I don't care about anybody on those planes. Of course I don't want people to die, but in terms of building up tension, there's just nothing.
No, because it's a kid show. It's a show for 7-year-old boys.
I don't care. And I know Automan's not going to die because he's a computer.
And he's Chuck Wagner.
And he's Chuck Wagner. And if everybody else died, frankly, I wouldn't care.
So they save the day. Everything's back to normal for the wrap up, except Boyd has some questions. How did Wally do this shit without any training? To which Wally looks at him and goes, beginner's luck, which makes Roxanne laugh, which makes Lieutenant Jack laugh, which
Jack
makes
laughs harder than anybody.
Yep.
He's really good at that, like, wrap up, like
at the wrap up laugh. Yeah. He really is. And you're just like, it's just some stupid, like, old Captain Boyd can't figure out how Wally saved the day. But Jack's not in on the joke either.
No, still.
From Jack's perspective, like, he goes out to hang out with young cops, and then when he gets back, the case is solved. Like,
and we skipped a part because I don't know exactly where it is. There's a scene in Boyd's office we cut to, and Jack is like chilling on Boyd's couch, got his feet up, got his hands behind his neck. It was so funny. I loved it so much. I was like, what are you doing? You're relaxing on another man's couch. You weirdo. There's a break room for that.
That was when there's pictures of kids on Boyd's desk. And I was like, oh, those poor fucking kids. God.
Getting called bad names and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, this episode was not my favorite.
No, I think I might have not minded it as much as the last one because it didn't have as many problems, but there's absolutely nothing good about this one. Like,
No.
Felton Perry disappoints.
And he wasn't even that bad. It was just, he was written poorly.
Yeah, it's just he's the sniveling sidekick part.
And he was a bad guy. And it was just like, oh, come on. Even though he turned around, it was just sort of like,
yeah.
But
so
the next episode 8, Renegade Run, aired on my birthday, 1984. Crooked Sheriff Horton, you're going to love this, tries to force biker Chico Fuentes to sign over half his land so the sheriff can run illegal immigrants over the border. Bad. Fuentes is put in jail and forced into manual labor. Automan and a motorcycle gang have to come to the rescue. So I am excited to see Chuck in leathers. Yes, please.
We totally miss that Automan does at some point put on his flight suit. And it never really goes anywhere. Yeah. It never goes anywhere. Nobody sees him.
He was very excited. But he's going to be in leathers next time.
All right.
I'm going to watch it really and then I'm going to take a nap. I am very tired today.
All right.
But that was a good one. Thank you all for listening. See you next time.
We need an Automan send-off. Okay. That was pretty good.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.